Good evening, Rowan. It's the evening of the 24th of September 2015 and it's about 11 o'clock in the evening. I haven't been out raping and pillaging today because I've been a bit tired, so I've been resting. But if I'm feeling a bit more perky tomorrow, I might go out and have another go. Anyway, this evening I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the comments you've made in the New Statesman in an article you wrote about Pope Francis. You were having a really good old snipe at me in this article because you think I care about what you say. So I just thought I'd answer some of the comments that you've made. I'm not going through the whole article, which is a better article than what you wrote about Brother Roger of Taizé, because you couldn't write that kind of rubbish for the New Statesman, could you? Because the editor wouldn't have published it. Anyway, I have noticed that in what you write for secular publications you don't redefine words either, and that's because the editor won't publish them. So anyway, I'll just move on to a few of these snipes and bizarre statements that you've made, and make a couple of comments about them. Right, so the first thing I'm going to refer to is a statement you've made. For non-Roman Catholics, there is a certain wry satisfaction in watching conservative Catholics wriggling through explanations that of course the Pope's views on climate change or capitalism are just his personal opinions. Well, the first thing to say is I'm very surprised that you're watching people wriggling uncomfortably with any satisfaction, because according to you that's a really bad thing to do, you know, be satisfied in other people's discomfort or distress or anything like that. You're always saying it. It's one of the things that you say to me to try and shut me up. So I'm quite surprised really that you're admitting that you're doing the thing you assume I'm doing, or you say that I'm doing, in order to try and shut me up. So that's the first thing to say about that. And then I want to speak about the phrase climate change. Well, there's a variety of opinions as to how old the Earth is, varying between about 6,000 years and 4.6 billion years, but in any case, however long the Earth has existed, the climate has been changing all the time due to that big hot thing in the sky, the fiery thing called the sun, which drives the Earth's climate. So what you're really talking about is anthropogenic global warming, isn't it? So why don't you say the Pope's views on global warming? Well, it's an Orwellian name change, isn't it? Because we've all noticed the globe isn't warming due to carbon dioxide emissions from human beings. In fact, we're all freezing in this part of the world particularly. So you think you can pull the wool over our eyes by changing the name to climate change? Well, I'm not having it. You're talking about global warming and we're all freezing. Anyway, capitalism. Well, I don't know what the Pope said about capitalism, but one thing I do know is that when the majority of people criticise capitalism and say, you know, it oppresses the poor and exploits the poor and damages the environment and things like that, they're not actually talking about capitalism, they're talking about corporatocracy, which is the takeover of the world really by multinational companies that are controlled by the global elite who you work for. So I know what capitalism is, you see, and I know what communism is, and I know what corporatocracy is. So trying to tell me that the Pope's a communist won't work. I know you think I'm really dumb, but that's because you think that you're really clever, and you're not, quite frankly. Anyway, I want to go over this sentence again. The Pope's views on climate change or capitalism are just his personal opinions. Well, I'm assuming you know what the deposit of faith is, and the deposit of faith is things that Catholics are required to believe in. And anthropogenic global warming isn't one of them. It couldn't be one of them, it's impossible. So it doesn't make any difference what the Pope thinks about global warming. I don't have to agree with him. And also, you know, the Pope is bound by the tradition of the Church and what it's traditionally taught. He can't suddenly go off on an environmentalist agenda the way that you do, just because he feels like it. That's the way that the papacy is portrayed in the media, but it isn't like that. You could do whatever you wanted. He can't. No Pope can. If he starts telling us we have to worship the man in the moon or start hugging trees, we can sack him. Anyway, so that's that. Oh, and the final thing I wanted to say about that is, I wonder if you've actually realised that the Pope doesn't believe in global warming. All of this is for your benefit, so to speak. Don't tell me you're so dumb, you haven't even realised that. Anyway, moving on. You're talking about the Pope now. You're saying he's not moving fast enough for Liberals on the women, gay, divorce, abortion cluster of issues, and he's not saying enough about these things to keep Conservatives happy, wasting his energies and compromising his authority by sounding off about poverty and environmental crisis. Well, where's the Pope going to be moving on abortion? Where's he going to be moving to? Is he going to come out on his balcony one day and tell everybody he thinks abortion's a great idea? I don't think so. The Church isn't going to be moving, so to speak, on any of these issues in the sense that you're implying. It just isn't going to happen. The majority of people who read the New Statesman don't know anything about the Catholic Church, only what they've seen in the media. They don't understand that the Pope isn't just a political figure and he can do whatever he wants and say whatever he wants. And you're promoting this idea that the Pope can just decide to go off in a different direction if he feels like it. And it just isn't true. Anyway, you go on to talk about difficulty of categorising the Pope. The Catholic Conservative who has unthinkingly rolled up the pro-life agenda with support for the death penalty, the National Rifle Association, US foreign policy and the uncontrolled global market finds this as shocking as the Catholic liberal who thinks in terms of a single progressive or emancipatory agenda that the Pope is failing to support consistently. Uncontrolled global market. Well, who should be controlling it then? The UN? The World Trade Organization? Who should be controlling it? Some very virtuous people, I suppose, who are intellectually in every way superior to the rest of us, should be in control. Right. Well, Catholic Church doesn't support the death penalty. The National Rifle Association, well, that will be related to the right to bear arms, won't it, in America? Do you understand there's a difference anyway between killing an innocent person and killing a guilty person? Like, it's different killing somebody who's completely innocent and who can't defend themselves to shooting someone who breaks into your house and is about to murder all of your family. Do you understand there's a difference between that? Or is everyone unthinking if they don't just go along with the globalist agenda as dictated by you? If you take guns off people, we don't have the right to wear arms in Britain. We've never really had it since the Romans came. If you take arms off ordinary people, then you leave them in the hand of the government, don't you? And the governments are always benevolent, we know that, don't we? They always know best. Having to think through the connections between our moral perspectives so that we can have intelligent arguments about them is rather urgent, is a rather urgent need in the current climate, where policy and principle are so often created reactively and opportunistically. Do I have any political party especially in mind? Perish the thought. Well, that's a direct jibe at me, because I did write Perish the Thought about some ridiculous statement you'd made on YouTube. So I've noticed you calling me not intelligent here. Well, you're not upset with me because I'm not intelligent. You're upset with me because I'm too intelligent. And it's rather obvious to me, all the rubbish you talk, and that you're reading from a globalist script. So I'm not having any intelligent discussions with you, as if you've got a valid point of view, because you haven't. It's not even your opinion. You're being told what to say. I know what the agenda is. I'm calling you out. You're upset because I'm too intelligent. And I know that you're a fool. That's what you're upset about. Anyway, you talk about one of these authors of the books that you're reviewing devoting a full and candid chapter to the continuing and heartbreaking business of dealing with clerical abuse, concluding that Francis has been slow to make it a priority as Pope, and that his record in this area as a diocesan bishop was at best average. Like practically all bishops who were in post before about the mid-1990s, this writer was one. That's you. He had little training and little awareness of the scale and depth of the problem. Well, I can't comment on the Pope's record in dealing with allegations of clerical abuse, because I don't know anything about it. However, I can comment about you, because I know an awful lot about it. Don't pretend you just don't know how to deal with abuse, or you didn't know. Don't pretend. Because you're not some incompetent bishop who doesn't know how to deal with abuse. You're the abuser. You didn't not react to people who were abusing me. You were going around controlling people who were abusing me. You were lying behind my back. You went all over the world. You didn't even stay in Britain. You hounded me around the country, even when I moved out of Wales and was none of your business. You stuck your beak in everywhere and made my life a misery. And all really because you couldn't get your leg over and you wanted to discredit me if I blew the whistle on you. And also, you'll have been told to do all of that, won't you? To make me seem like some kind of delinquent, insane sex maniac or something, and a fantasist. Because the globalists couldn't have me, someone as competent and articulate and well respected as me, when nobody's bad-mouthing me behind my back. They couldn't have someone like that blowing the whistle on their boy wonder, could they? And that's what it's all been about. So don't take me for a fool. You jumped up little twerp. Honestly.